On June 22, 1962, friends from Second Church of Christ and their minister Bob Knox met at the home of Walter and Lavina Harmon on Dayton Road with a desire to start a new church in Licking Valley. The following week, 34 prospective members met at the Harmon's home for their first church service. On July 22, 1962, this congregation held its first Bible school and worship service in Madison Elementary School, and 45 people were received as charter members of the Church of Christ at Licking Valley. The church quickly recognized the need to have their own facility, and these families gave sacrificially, even taking out personal loans to purchase 20 acres of land on Dayton Road and move forward with building a building with dreams of being carriers of the gospel of Jesus Christ to those in this area who were far from God. On October 28, 1962, just 4 months after initially meeting as a church, a groundbreaking service was held to begin building a 40 by 60 church building. And on June 9, 1963, worship services were moved to this new building at 1578 Dayton Road. But from the inception of the church on the day of Pentecost in Acts 2 until today, the church has never been about building buildings. The church is built on Jesus Christ. He is the head of the church, the firm foundation on which we build our lives. And Jesus has commissioned his church with this incredible privilege of partnering with him to make disciples of Jesus. This was the clear mandate Jesus gave for all churches, for all times. As the Church of Christ at Licking Valley kept this mission front and center, this local body began to grow, eventually adding on, updating, and filling the building. And in the early 2000s, the building began to be a cap for the growth of this church that we were experiencing. And so the leadership had to make some pivotal decisions, and it was going to take some faith.
The Lord gave Lynn and I the privilege of coming to Licking Valley back in 1989, and we had the honor of serving there for 32 years. When we first arrived, it was a congregation of about 75 people. We had a mortgage of $70,000 or $80,000 that we were working on at the time, and we made it our goal to try to reach 100 people in the sanctuary and pay that mortgage off. It was one happy day when we crossed both of those barriers. The church continued to grow. God blessed. We ended up going to 2 services and actually experimented with a third for a little while. We just had to build a bigger building. We were just all so happy about it until the architect gave us the price tag. And then it scared me to death. We went $1.2 million in debt on that mortgage. The project was $1.6 before it was over with. And I really had trouble sleeping at night, worrying. A trustee friend of mine said, "We never told you to worry about this. God's got this." Now I hear you're stretching out on faith again. And I would just remind you, those of you that might be foot draggers a little bit like I was, God's got this.
In 2018, the leadership of the church put some strategic action steps to this mission of making disciples through this vision statement. We want to help people begin to know Jesus, believe in him, become a closer follower, and build his kingdom. These vision steps helped clarify how we would go about making disciples, and the Lord added to his church. Since 2018, the church has doubled our average weekly attendance, and we've seen 161 baptisms in that time. It is amazing to witness what God has been doing and be a part of it. There are so many stories of people being changed by Jesus through this church. People restored from addictions, people who have contemplated suicide now living with purpose as they follow Jesus. Marriages that were on the brink of divorce now thriving. Children in the community hearing the gospel for the very first time, even at their local school. We have parents who are baptizing their children, friends baptizing their friends, missions locally and throughout the world being supported so the gospel of Jesus Christ can be spread. It's all because of God's grace and the faithfulness of his people going beyond just the walls of a church facility. In the fall of 2023, the church voted to change our name, and on January 1st, 2024, we went from being known as Licking Valley Church of Christ to officially being known as Rise Christian Church. With the church's growth, our reach has been extended beyond the Licking Valley community, And so this name not only reminds us that our mission to make disciples crosses geographic borders and school rivalries, but more importantly, it is a name that points us back to the crux of our faith, that we serve a Savior who has conquered death, sin, and the grave by rising from the dead. Well, today we stand at another pivotal moment. With all this growth, we are faced with a decision in regards to our facility. We've tried to be creative in adding space for our booming children's programming, but we are out of space. Our middle school boys take a space heater and meet in a garage because they've run out of room, and our second service has gotten to the point of being uncomfortably full. The leadership wants to make sure that our building does not become the lid that holds back this growth. There are approximately 120,000 people in Licking County who do not have a church home, and there will be many more in the next few years as our area grows with some huge industries moving in. But our goal is not to get a bunch of people from other churches to join our church. Our goal is to make a dent in the number of people who are headed to hell in our own backyard, so that they may know our Savior Jesus Christ and spend eternity with Him alongside of us. We want to make heaven full. So we are launching an initiative we are calling Together We Rise, and this initiative is way more than just building a building. A building is just a box, a tool that we can use. But this initiative is really about people, about making more disciples. Yes, we want to raise money to expand our facility, but giving is just the fruit, the result of a life devoted to Jesus. And so in this Together We Rise initiative, we want to raise the spiritual tide of our church. We want to see people rise from death to life, rise from living this life alone to living in community. We want to rise from a life of greed to outrageous generosity. We want to rise from being served to serving, and we want to rise from being fish to fishing for people. Yes, a building is a part of this plan, and we are proposing to build a building with the upper level being a new worship center, the bottom level being an incredible space for our kids, and then a renovation of our current space to create an awesome environment for our student ministry. Obviously, adding this type of space comes at a financial cost, and that might bring some people apprehension. And so I asked Roger McLean to share a little bit about the church's experience with our last building program.
As any building campaign, especially in a nonprofit, people have their views and so on. And we had a few, very few, who were a little apprehensive about the project due to the money involved. And frankly, we had a couple that just flat didn't want to see it because they liked this church as a small country church. We then began construction in 2004. Our goal was to be done by Christmas Eve, to have our first Christmas Eve service in our new sanctuary where we're sitting here today. We met that goal except for about 10 days before Christmas of that year. If people remember, we had a terrible ice storm and no electricity. We decided that if we got power on, our power came on by 4 o'clock that afternoon, we are going to be open for Christmas Eve service. By George, about 5 till 4, something like that, it came on. After the completion of the building program, obviously the church grew. And out of the very few people who really didn't want to get involved with it like that, most of them, came in, enjoyed it. Not only were we able to make our payments over the next 8, 10, 12 years, we were able to put additional monies on the loan. And somewhere around, I think, the 10th or 11th year, we actually paid the loan off. All the building programs that we've set on to do have, we've met our deadlines, we've met budgets, exceeded them. Looking back on the building project, it was such a positive, enjoyable, stressful at times. I wonder where this church would be today if this building expansion hadn't taken place. That's where we're at today with the new building proposed. Where will we be 20 years from now if we don't do the new building addition?
Again, we're calling this initiative Together We Rise. United together, we want to raise the spiritual tide of our church. Together we rise for the glory of God, for our kids, for our neighbors, for our friends, for our families, for the hurting, for the broken, for the lost, for future generations, for the community, for the world, for the one.